If someone has ever said to you, "You're being too sensitive," right after they did something that hurt your feelings, you're not dealing with someone who cares about you. Let me repeat that. They do not care about your feelings. You're dealing with a narcissist who is actively, and I mean actively, trying to control your reality. After 45 years of working with people from every walk of life, from CEOs in glass towers to families in crisis, you start to see patterns. You see the same stories, the same pain, the same confusion. For the longest time, I would sit with people and they'd tell me about their relationships and they'd be miserable, but they couldn't put their finger on why. They'd say, "He's a good man, but," or "She's a great mother, but," and in that "but" was a world of hurt. It took me years to connect the dots, to realize that the most dangerous weapon in a narcissist's arsenal isn't their rage or their ego. It's their words. I had a light bulb moment, sitting across from a woman who was convinced she was losing her mind. Her husband had never laid a hand on her, but he had systematically dismantled her self-worth with a handful of seemingly innocent phrases. And right then, I knew I wasn't just dealing with communication problems. I was looking at a blueprint for psychological warfare. You see, most people think narcissists are easy to spot. They think of the chest-thumping, bragging, self-important blowhard who has to be the center of attention. And sure, those classic narcissists are out there. They're loud, they're obvious, and frankly, they're amateurs. But let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind. The real threat, the hidden danger, isn't the narcissist you can see coming from a mile away. It's the one who comes disguised as a caring partner, a concerned parent, a helpful boss. The one who uses language to tie you up in knots so tight you can't tell which way is up. The real threat is verbal control. It's the most insidious, poisonous form of narcissistic abuse because it masquerades as reason. It sounds logical. It sounds like they're just trying to help you. In my experience, and I'm talking about thousands of cases here, 95% of people miss these verbal control tactics. Why? Because they sound so reasonable, so caring, so concerned. They sound like something a person who loves you might say. And that's the trap. That's the genius of their manipulation. They've figured out how to deliver poison in a spoonful of sugar, and they get you to thank them for it. Make no mistake, this isn't accidental. This is a system. It's a calculated control system where narcissists use language as a weapon to maintain dominance, to manage your reactions, and to make sure you never, ever hold them accountable for their behavior. Their words become invisible chains, and you become a prisoner in your own life without ever seeing the bars of the cage. They are crafting a narrative where they are always the good guy, and you are always the one who is flawed, broken, or crazy. Now, I want you to take a second and be really honest with yourself. I want you to think about this, and if you're brave enough, tell me in the comments, have you ever had someone say something to you that made you question your own reality, your own feelings, your own sanity? Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, exhausted, and feeling like maybe you were the problem, even though you were the one who got hurt? If you're nodding your head right now, then you need to listen to what I'm about to say. Why does this matter? It matters because your peace of mind matters. Your self-worth matters. Your sanity matters today. We're going to decode the exact phrases narcissists use to control you, and trust me, once you hear what I'm about to tell you, you'll never be fooled again. You'll have the playbook. You'll see the manipulation for what it is, and you'll be able to protect yourself. We're going to talk about 7 deadly phrases that narcissists use to keep you under their thumb. These aren't just words. They are psychological tools honed to perfection. And I'm not just going to tell you what they are. I'm going to give you the tools to fight back. We're going to build your verbal self-defense arsenal so that the next time someone tries to twist your reality, you'll be ready. You'll be armed with the truth, and believe me, there is no greater power than that. Let's get started. All right, the first phrase we need to talk about is the cornerstone of the narcissist's verbal arsenal. It's one that sounds like they're giving you helpful feedback, like they're trying to offer you some perspective. But what it really is a surgical strike on your emotional intelligence. And that phrase is, "You're being too sensitive." I want you to think about the last time someone said that to you. What just happened? They did something, maybe it was a cutting remark, a joke at your expense, or they ignored a promise. It hurt. You reacted. You showed that you were in pain. And then came the phrase, "You're being too sensitive." In that one moment, the entire situation flips. Suddenly, the focus isn't on what they did anymore. It's on your reaction. This is what I call the emotional hijack. They've successfully diverted attention from their bad behavior and put you on the defensive. Now you're not talking about their actions. You're defending your right to have feelings. It's a brilliant and despicable move. I remember running a group therapy session years ago for people who had left abusive relationships. We had about 15 people in the room, men and women from all different backgrounds. I asked a simple question. What was the one thing your partner said that always made you feel crazy? I swear to you, at least 10 people, without even thinking, said some version of, "They told me I was too sensitive." One woman, let's call her Sarah, started crying. She said her husband would accidentally break her favorite things, a teacup from her grandmother, a picture frame with her parents in it. And when she would get upset, he'd put his arm around her and say, "Oh, honey, don't be so sensitive. It was just an accident." He used that phrase to silence her, to make her feel like her grief was an overreaction. He was assassinating her emotions, one accident at a time. Let's get one thing straight right now. When a narcissist tells you you're being too sensitive, what they're really saying is this: "I want to hurt you without consequences, so I'm going to make you believe your pain is your fault." It's a get out of jail free card for cruelty. They are conditioning you to stop reacting to their abuse. Every time you accept that label, too sensitive, you are giving them permission to cross your boundaries again and again and again. This is psychological warfare, and it is ruthlessly effective, especially against empathetic, caring people. Why? Because empathetic people value harmony. They are in tune with the feelings of others, and the last thing they want is to be seen as irrational or difficult. The narcissist knows this. They target your empathy and turn it into a weapon against you. You start thinking, well, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I should be tougher. You begin to doubt your own emotional compass. This is the long-term damage. It's not just about one comment. It's a slow erosion of your emotional confidence until you don't trust your own feelings anymore. And this is where it becomes a key part of a gaslighting campaign. Gaslighting is making someone question their own sanity, and this phrase is gaslighting 101. When it's repeated over and over, you start to believe it. You start to think you're the one with the problem. At work, your boss makes a demeaning comment about your work in front of the whole team. When you talk to them about it later, they say, "I was just joking. Don't be so sensitive. You need to develop a thicker skin if you want to succeed here." The issue is no longer their unprofessionalism, it's your supposed weakness. In the family, your mother constantly criticizes your parenting. When you finally say, "Mom, that hurts my feelings," she replies, "I'm just trying to help." You're being too sensitive. I guess I can't say anything right. Now you feel guilty for upsetting her. In your relationship, you tell your partner that you feel lonely because they spend all their free time on their phone. They look up annoyed and say, "God, you're so needy. Why are you so sensitive? I can't even relax for 5 minutes." Your legitimate need for connection has just been labeled a character flaw. And here's the ultimate hypocrisy, what I call the reversal game. The same narcissist who calls you too sensitive is often the most thin-skinned, hypersensitive person you will ever meet. They can dish it out, but they absolutely cannot take it. The slightest criticism, the smallest perceived slight, will send them into a rage or a sulk. They demand that their feelings be treated with the utmost care, while simultaneously dismissing yours as invalid. I worked with a client, a man named David, whose wife, Jennifer, was a master of this. She would make cruel jokes about his weight in front of their friends. When David would get quiet and withdrawn, she would corner him later, and hiss, "You ruined the whole night with your pouting. Why do you have to be so sensitive?" But if David ever made a gentle joke about her leaving her shoes in the middle of the floor, she would burst into tears, accusing him of being a heartless bully and giving him the silent treatment for days. He was walking on eggshells, constantly managing her feelings while being told that his own feelings were wrong. That's the game. Their feelings are facts. Your feelings are a flaw. So let me tell you the truth. Let me tell you something that you need to burn into your brain. Sensitivity is not a character flaw. It's a superpower. It's your emotional guidance system. It's what allows you to connect with people, to feel joy, to experience love, to have empathy. It is the very core of your humanity. And the narcissist wants to take that away from you, because if you can't trust your own feelings, you are much, much easier to control. So, how do you know when this phrase is being used to manipulate you? The warning sign is simple. It's used to shut down a conversation, not to open one up. A person who genuinely cares about you might say, "I didn't realize that would hurt you. Can you tell me why you feel that way?" A narcissist says, "You're too sensitive to make the conversation and your feelings go away." So what do? What is the proper response? You do not argue. You do not defend. You hold your ground. You state your reality calmly and firmly. The next time someone says, "You're being too sensitive," you look them in the eye and say one of these things: "My feelings are not up for debate. Whether you think I'm being sensitive or not, what you did hurt me. I'm not going to apologize for my feelings. We can talk about what you did, or we can end this conversation. Don't tell me how to feel. You have to be a broken record." They will try to argue, to deflect, to turn it back on you. Don't take the bait. You simply repeat your truth. You are reclaiming your right to your own emotional reality. This is the first step in taking back your power and dismantling their control, one deadly phrase at a time. Now, if you're being too sensitive is the narcissist's way of invalidating your feelings, then the phrase we're about to talk about is their nuclear weapon. This one goes beyond your emotions. This is a direct assault on your memory, your perception, and your sanity. This is the phrase they use to rewrite history in real time, and that phrase is, "I never said that." Think about that for a second. There is nothing more destabilizing than having someone you trust look you dead in the eye and deny a reality you both shared. It's a direct attack on your mind. You had a conversation, you remember the words, you remember where you were, what was said, and then poof, they tell you it never happened. It's not just a disagreement, it's a complete erasure of your experience. I've worked with countless victims of gaslighting over the years, and let me tell you, the damage from this one phrase is profound. I've had clients come into my office clutching journals, reading from pages they wrote just to prove to themselves that they weren't crazy. They would tell me, "Dr. Phil, I know he said he would pick up the kids. We talked about it on the phone at 10 a.m. I wrote it down, but when he didn't show up and I called him, he said we never had that conversation. He told me I was losing my mind. And for a second, I believed him." That's the power of this phrase. It can make a sane person question the very ground they're standing on. So let's decode this. What is the real translation when a narcissist says, "I never thought"? What they're really saying is, "I'm going to rewrite history to suit my needs, and you're going to help me do it by doubting yourself." They are creating a reality where they are never wrong, never accountable, and never have to keep their word. It is the ultimate power trip. If they can control your past, they can control your present and your future. This is a masterclass in gaslighting. It's so effective because of its sheer audacity. They will use this phrase even when there is clear, undeniable evidence to the contrary. This is the technology factor in the modern age. You can literally be holding a phone with a text message from them that says, "I'll be there at 7, and when they show up at 9 and you show them the text, they will look at it, look at you, and say, "I never sent that. You must have misunderstood, or my phone must be acting up." They will lie so boldly, so shamelessly, that you start to think, no one would lie about something so easily proven. Maybe I am the one who's mixed up. The psychological impact is devastating. It creates a fog of confusion and self-doubt that can be incredibly difficult to escape from. I had a case study that I will never forget. A man, let's call him Mark, worked for a narcissistic boss who was a classic "I never said that" abuser. Mark had been promised a promotion and a significant raise during his annual review. His boss shook his hand, told him the paperwork would be processed in a month, and that he should be proud of his work. Mark was ecstatic. He went home, celebrated with his wife, and they started making plans. A month went by, nothing. 2 months. Mark finally got the courage to ask his boss about it. His boss looked at him with a blank stare and said, "What promotion? I never said that. I think you would have remembered if I'd promised you a promotion." Mark was floored. He said, "But we shook on it. You told me the exact salary." His boss just shook his head and said, "You have a very active imagination. Maybe you're not handling the pressure of this job very well." In one conversation, Mark went from being a star employee to someone whose competence and sanity were being questioned. His boss didn't just deny a promise. He assassinated Mark's reality to avoid accountability. You have to understand, this isn't just about a bad memory. This is a pattern. It's a campaign. The repeated use of "I never said that" manipulates your memory over time. You start to lose confidence in your own perceptions. You begin to preface everything with "I might be wrong, but I thought you said." You start to defer to their version of events because it's just too exhausting to fight for your own reality. This leads to what I call the evidence trap. Because you're so tired of being told you're wrong, you might start trying to gather proof. You save emails, you record conversations, you write everything down. But when you present this evidence to the narcissist, they don't back down. They attack you for gathering the evidence in the first place. They'll say, "Why are you recording me? Are you trying to trap me? This is why I can't trust you." They flip the script again. Now the problem isn't their lying, it's your crazy and untrusting behavior of keeping records. They trap you in a no-win situation. So what are your protection strategies? First, you have to understand that documenting things is for you, not for them. You will never win an argument with a person who doesn't live in reality. So keep a private journal. Save the texts and emails. Do it to anchor yourself in the truth. When you feel that fog of confusion rolling in, you can look at your journal and say, "No, I am not crazy. This happened." This documentation is your sanity check. And that brings me to the most important point. If someone in your life, your partner, your parent, your boss, regularly tells you that things you clearly remember never happened, you are not dealing with someone who is forgetful. You are dealing with someone who is dangerous. A forgetful person will say, "Wow, I completely forgot about that. I'm so sorry." A dangerous person will deny your reality to protect their own ego. The recovery process from this kind of abuse is about rebuilding trust in the most important person in your life, yourself. It's about learning to listen to that voice inside you that says, "Wait a minute, that's not right." It's about giving yourself permission to believe your own memory over their denials. Start small. Trust your recollection of little things. Rebuild that confidence one memory at a time, because your reality is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship, and you are the one in charge. Don't let anyone, and I mean anyone, assassinate your truth. All right, we've talked about how they invalidate your feelings with "you're being too sensitive," and how they try to erase your reality with "I never said that." Now we get to the third phrase in the narcissist's control playbook. This one is particularly slick because it sounds like they're trying to calm you down, like they're the voice of reason in a heated moment. But what they're actually doing is trying to turn down the volume on your legitimate anger and frustration. And that phrase is, "You're overreacting." This is a direct attack on your emotional regulation. Think about it. An appropriate reaction to being wronged is to get upset. Anger is a signal. It tells you a boundary has been crossed. It tells you something is not right. It's a healthy, normal human response. But the narcissist can't have that. Your anger, your frustration, your tears, those are all holding up a mirror to their bad behavior, and they can't stand to look at their own reflection. So they have to make your reaction the problem, not their action. I've seen this play out in couples therapy more times than I can count. I had a couple, let's call them Tom and Brenda. Tom had a habit of making big financial decisions without consulting Brenda. He bought a brand new sports car, draining a huge chunk of their savings that they had earmarked for a down payment on a house. When Brenda found out, she was justifiably furious. She was yelling, she was crying. This was their future he had gambled away on a whim. In the therapy session, Tom looked at me with this calm, patient expression and said, "See, Dr. Phil, this is what I have to deal with. She's completely overreacting." He was trying to paint her as hysterical and irrational for having a perfectly normal reaction to a massive betrayal of trust. He wasn't trying to calm her down, he was trying to shut her down. So let's get to the real translation. When a narcissist says, "You're overreacting," what they're really saying is, "Your reaction is making me uncomfortable and forcing me to face the consequences of my actions, so I'm going to make you believe your response is inappropriate and out of proportion." They are trying to recalibrate your emotional responses to serve their own needs. This is their minimization strategy. They have to make their big violations seem like small issues. If they can convince you that you're overreacting, then what they did wasn't really that bad. It's a way of shrinking their offense by inflating your response. Why do they do this? Because if they can get you to have a smaller and smaller reaction each time, they can get away with bigger and bigger violations. They are training you to accept unacceptable behavior. It's a slow, creeping erosion of your standards. Then comes the comparison game. They'll say things like, "Nobody else would get this upset about this," or "Why can't you be more easygoing like so-and-so's wife?" They are trying to make you feel abnormal, to isolate you in your feelings. They want you to believe that your emotional responses are outside the norm, that you're the only one who would react this way. It's another tactic to make you doubt yourself and your own judgment. In the workplace, you discover your manager has been taking credit for your work. You confront them and they say, "You're overreacting. It's a team effort. We all contribute." They minimize their theft of your intellectual property by framing your legitimate anger as a dramatic overreaction. In the family, your teenage son breaks his curfew by 3 hours and doesn't answer his phone. When he finally strolls in, you're upset and scared. You ground him. He rolls his eyes and says, "God, you're overreacting. All my friends stay out this late." He's learned this technique. He's trying to make your appropriate parental concern seem like a hysterical overreach. In a healthy relationship, let me be very clear about this. People care about your reactions. They want to understand them. A healthy partner says, "Wow, I can see you're really upset. I didn't realize this would affect you so much. Let's talk about it." They lean in. A narcissist tells you you're overreacting. They push you away. That is the reality check. Think of the narcissist as the controller of the emotional thermostat in the relationship. They want the temperature set to a level that is comfortable for them regardless of how you feel. If their behavior turns up the heat and you start to boil over, they don't address the source of the heat. No, they just walk over to the thermostat and try to dial your reaction down. They want you at a cool, manageable 68 degrees at all times, even when they're setting the house on fire. I had a client, a woman named Maria, who was a classic example of this. She worked in a high-pressure sales environment. Her coworker would constantly forget to pass on important client messages to her, causing her to miss deadlines and lose commissions. It was clear sabotage. When Maria finally gathered the evidence and presented it to her boss listened, sighed, and said, "Maria, I think you're overreacting. He's just a bit disorganized. You need to learn to be more of a team player and not take these little things so personally." Her boss didn't want to deal with the messy reality of a toxic employee, so he labeled Maria's legitimate, career-damaging complaint as an overreaction. He turned down the thermostat to avoid having to fix the faulty wiring in his department. So how do you fight back? First, you have to build confidence in your own emotional responses. Your feelings are valid. They are data. They are telling you something important. Don't let anyone edit them or dismiss them. Trust your gut. If you feel like your reaction is proportional to the offense, then it is. When they hit you with "you're overreacting," you need to set a firm boundary. Don't get drawn into a debate about the size of your reaction. That's their trap. You bring it back to the facts. You say, "I'm not going to debate my reaction with you. I want to talk about your action. Whether you think I'm overreacting or not, this is how I feel about what you did. My reaction is a direct result of your behavior. Let's focus on that." You are refusing to let them control the thermostat. You are taking their hand off the dial and saying, "No, we're going to talk about the fire you started." You are refusing to have your emotional reality dictated by someone else's comfort. And that right there is you taking your power back. All right, let's get down to business. We've peeled back the layers on how narcissists control your emotions and your reality. Now we're getting into the really dirty territory. We're getting into the phrases they use to make you feel like you should be grateful for their abuse. They wrap their cruelty in the cloak of virtue, and they do it with a phrase that sounds so noble, so righteous, but is actually a poison dagger aimed right at your self-worth. And that phrase is, "I'm just being honest." This one is one of the most toxic phrases in their entire playbook because it's so hard to argue against. Who can argue with honesty? Honesty is a good thing, right? We're taught to value honesty. So when someone prefaces a cruel, cutting, demeaning statement with, "I'm just being honest," they are hijacking a virtue and using it as a shield. They are putting on a virtue mask to disguise their attack. I've had abusers sit in my office, people who have systematically torn their partners down to nothing, and they use this exact justification. They'll say, "Dr. Phil, I don't know what her problem is. I'm just an honest person. I tell it like it is. If she can't handle the truth, that's on her." They genuinely believe or pretend to believe that their brutality is a form of integrity. They see their cruelty not as a character flaw, but as a badge of honor. They've convinced themselves that they are brave truth tellers when in reality, they are just bullies who have found a socially acceptable excuse for their behavior. So let's pull back the curtain. What is the real translation when a narcissist says, "I'm just being honest"? What they are really saying is, "I want to hurt you, but I don't want to take responsibility for the damage I'm causing. In fact, I want you to see me as noble for doing it." It's the ultimate responsibility dodge. They get to inflict pain, and instead of having to apologize, they get to position themselves as the brave soul who wasn't afraid to speak the truth, no matter how much it hurt. And let's talk about the timing factor, because a narcissist has an impeccable sense of timing when it comes to maximizing humiliation. They don't pull you aside for a private, constructive conversation. No, they save their honesty for the worst possible moments. They'll wait until you're at a dinner party with friends to say, "I'm just being honest, honey. That dress really doesn't do anything for you." They'll wait until a family gathering to announce, "I'm just being honest, but I don't think you have what it takes to run your own business." Why do they do this? Because of the audience factor. They are recruiting witnesses. They want to humiliate you publicly so you're less likely to fight back. They are performing their honesty for the crowd, making themselves look like the straightforward, no nonsense person while you're left feeling small, ashamed, and exposed. I had a client, a wonderful woman named Karen, whose husband Bill was a master of this. Karen had struggled with her weight her whole life and had finally lost 50 pounds. She was so proud. She bought a new outfit for a friend's wedding and felt beautiful for the first time in years. As they were walking into the reception, Bill pulled her close and whispered in her ear, "I'm just being honest. You still look thick around the middle. I just don't want you to get your hopes up." He said it with a look of concern, as if he were protecting her from future disappointment. Karen was crushed. The joy she felt vanished. She spent the entire wedding reception feeling self-conscious and ugly. Bill didn't do that to be helpful. He did it to sabotage her happiness, to remind her that he was in control of her self-esteem. He used honesty to systematically destroy her confidence. and he did it right at the moment she felt her strongest. This is the false virtue of the narcissist. You have to understand the fundamental difference between genuine honesty and weaponized truth. Genuine honesty is rooted in a desire to help. It's delivered with kindness, with empathy, and with a concern for the other person's feelings. It's usually delivered in private. Weaponized truth is rooted in a desire to hurt, control, or feel superior. The delivery method tells you everything you need to know. It's often delivered with a smirk, a condescending tone, or as a public spectacle. Here's a simple truth. Honest people don't need to constantly announce their honesty. They just are honest, their actions and their words align. When someone has to put up a big sign that says, "Warning, honesty coming," it's usually because they're about to say something cruel and they want to get away with it. The intention behind the words is everything. Is the goal to build you up or to tear you down? A narcissist using this phrase is always trying to tear you down. The damage assessment from this kind of verbal abuse is severe. It creates a deep-seated self-doubt. You start to believe the cruel things they say because they're wrapped in the packaging of truth. You lose trust in your own judgment, your own appearance, your own abilities. It's a slow poisoning of your self-worth. So what's the recovery strategy? You have to start by redefining honesty for yourself. Honesty without compassion is just cruelty. Period. You have to give yourself permission to reject any truth that is delivered with the intent to harm. This brings us to the response protocol. What do you do when someone hits you with this phrase? You call it what it is. You refuse to accept their framing of the situation. You say, "That wasn't honest, that was hurtful." Being honest doesn't give you a license to be cruel. There's a difference between honesty and criticism. What you just said was criticism. I'm not interested in your honesty when it's delivered that way. You are taking back the definition of the word. You are refusing to let them use a virtue as a weapon against you. You are saying, "I see what you're doing, and I'm not playing your game." You are exposing their cruelty for what it is, and you are protecting the very core of who you are from their toxic truth. All right, we've covered some serious ground. We've unmasked the phrases narcissists use to attack your feelings, your reality, your reactions, and even your sense of truth. But the fifth phrase we need to decode is perhaps the most insidious of all, because it doesn't sound like an attack. It sounds like a declaration of love. It sounds like the most romantic, passionate thing anyone could ever say to you. But let me tell you, it's not a love song, it's a prison sentence. And that phrase is, "Nobody else will love you like I do." This is the ultimate love deception. It masquerades as the peak of affection, a testament to a unique, once-in-a-lifetime bond. But it's a threat wrapped in the language of devotion. It's a velvet glove on an iron fist. It's designed to sound like they are cherishable and you are lucky, but the underlying message is one of terror. You are unlovable to anyone else, and if you leave me, you will die alone. I remember a young woman in one of my therapy groups, let's call her Chloe. She was bright, she was funny, but her spirit was just gone. She was in a relationship with a man who showered her with what looked like affection. He'd tell her constantly, "Nobody will ever understand you like I do. Nobody else will love you like I do." She thought it was romantic. But then the trap started to close. When she wanted to go out with her friends, he'd say, "They don't really get you. Nobody loves you like I do." When she got a promotion at work, he'd say, "That's great, but they'll never appreciate you there. Nobody values you like I do." He used that phrase to build a cage around her, and the bars of that cage were made of his unique love. He wasn't affirming his love for her, he was erasing the possibility of her being loved by anyone else. So let's do the real translation. When a narcissist looks at you with those big, sincere eyes and says, "Nobody else will love you like I do," what they are really saying is, "I want you to believe you're fundamentally unlovable so that you will never, ever have the courage to leave me." It's not a statement about their love. It's a statement about your worthlessness. This is the core of their isolation strategy. They have to cut you off from your support system, your friends, your family, your colleagues. because those people might hold up a mirror and show you the truth. Those people might say, hey, the way he talks to you isn't right, or you seem so unhappy. The narcissist can't have that. So they use this phrase to convince you that any love or support from others is inferior, that it's not the real thing. They create a cult of two, with them as the charismatic leader and you as the lone follower. They need you to feel completely dependent on their love, because a dependent person is a controllable person. It is the highest form of emotional imprisonment. And this leads directly to the self-worth assassination. If you hear over and over that you are so flawed, so difficult, so complicated that only one person on the entire planet could possibly love you, what do you think that does to your self-esteem? It pulverizes it. You start to believe it. You start to see your quirks as fatal flaws, your needs as unbearable burdens. The narcissist becomes the zookeeper of your defects, the only one brave enough to handle the real you. It is a systematic destruction of your confidence in your own lovability. And you have to see through the uniqueness lie. The idea that only one person can love you is fundamentally false. Love is not a scarce resource, it's abundant. But the narcissist sells you a story of scarcity. They create a comparison trap where every other relationship in your life and every potential relationship seems pale and inadequate compared to their deep and special love. They are manipulating you into a state of gratitude for their abuse. They want you to feel lucky that they are willing to put up with you. This is a tactic used by narcissistic parents all the time to control their adult children. They'll say, you can go off and live your life, but just remember, nobody will ever love you like your mother does. It's a way of instilling guilt and obligation, ensuring the child never fully separates and forms healthy, independent relationships. I had a client, a man named Greg, who was trapped for 10 years by this phrase. His wife, Lisa, was beautiful and charming on the outside, but a tyrant at home. She would belittle his career, his hobbies, his friends. But whenever he would get close to leaving, she would break down in tears. She'd hold him and say, I know I'm difficult, but it's only because I love you so much. Nobody else in the world would love you like I do. They wouldn't be this passionate. They wouldn't care this much. And Greg would stay. He stayed because she had convinced him that her volatile, controlling behavior was a symptom of a powerful, unique love that he couldn't find anywhere else. He was afraid to leave the prison because she had convinced him it was a palace. Here is the reality check in a healthy relationship. You feel loved naturally. It's in the actions, the respect, the support. You don't need to be constantly told that you're lucky to have it. Healthy love makes you feel more lovable, not less. It makes your world bigger, not smaller. It encourages your relationships with others. It doesn't try to sever them. So what is the escape route? You have to recognize this phrase for the red flag it is. When you hear it, don't feel flattered. Feel alarmed. It is the sound of a cage door swinging shut. The first step to getting out is to start quietly reconnecting with the people who were in your life before the narcissist. Call that friend. Have lunch with that family member. Let their normal, healthy affection be a reminder that you are lovable. Building your self-worth is the next critical step. You have to challenge the lies you've been told. Make a list of your good qualities. Make a list of the people who have shown you kindness and friendship. You have to actively fight their narrative with the truth. And finally, you have to embrace the idea of love abundance. You have to believe deep in your bones that you are worthy of a love that is kind, respectful, and freeing. You have to believe that the narcissist's special love isn't special at all. It's just a cheap imitation, and you deserve so much more. You deserve the real thing. All right? So we've been in the trenches. We've identified the enemy's weapons. You now know the 5 deadly phrases. You're being too sensitive. I never said that. You're overreacting. I'm just being honest, and nobody else will love you like I do. Now that you know what they really mean, it's time to arm yourself. Let me give you a battle plan to protect yourself from this verbal manipulation and reclaim your power. Because knowledge is useless without action. This is where you learn to fight back. First, you have to master pattern recognition. You have to understand that these phrases are not isolated incidents. They are a coordinated system of control. Think of it like a spider's web. Each phrase is a single, sticky thread. On its own, it might be just an annoyance. But when they are woven together, they create a powerful trap designed to immobilize you. The narcissist uses "you're too sensitive" to invalidate your feelings, then uses "I never said that" to deny the event that caused them. They use "you're overreacting" to police your response, then justify their cruelty with "I was just being honest." And finally, they lock the cage with "nobody else will love you like I do," ensuring you feel too worthless to even try to escape. When you see these phrases as a system, you stop seeing them as individual disagreements and start seeing them for what they are: a calculated campaign to control you. I worked with a man, let's call him James, who was a perfect example of this. For years, his wife had him convinced he was an emotional wreck. She'd forget important events, and when he'd get upset, she'd tell him he was too sensitive. She'd deny her promises, telling him he was losing his memory. When he finally broke down in my office, he was a shell of a man, but as we started decoding these phrases, the lights came on for him. He started seeing the pattern. He began to see it wasn't him, it was her system. That knowledge was the key that unlocked his cage. He learned to counter the phrases, to trust his own reality, and eventually to walk away. Today, he is in a healthy relationship with a woman who validates his feelings, and he says the most powerful tool he has is the ability to see the manipulation coming. That's a success story. So how do you get there? You start your documentation strategy. Now listen to me. This is not about gathering evidence to win a court case against the narcissist. You will never win an argument with someone who refuses to live in reality. This is about gathering intelligence for yourself. This is your reality anchor. Get a small notebook or use a private notes app on your phone. When an incident happens, write it down. Date, time, what was said, how it made you feel. Be factual. July 18th, 10:15 p.m. He said he was just being honest when he called my new haircut a disaster in front of my sister. I felt humiliated. This journal is your proof. It's your anchor to the truth when the gaslighting fog rolls in and you start to doubt yourself. Next up, and this is the important part, you need a response playbook. Look, when you're under attack, you can't be fumbling for words. You can't be trying to figure out what to say while they're coming at you. You need to have short, firm, boundary-setting statements locked and loaded. So when they hit you with, "You're being too sensitive," what do you say? You look them dead in the eye and you say, "My feelings are not up for debate." End of story. And when they pull that classic, "I never said that," you don't argue. You don't get into eyes you did. No, I didn't fight. You just say, "I know what I heard." And then you walk away. You shut it down. What about "you're overreacting"? You come back with, "I'm having a reaction that is appropriate for me." You own it. It's your reaction, not theirs to judge. And that phony "I'm just being honest" line, you call it out. You say, "That wasn't honest. That was hurtful." You name it for what it is, and for the big one, the one that's supposed to keep you trapped, "Nobody else will love you like I do." Your response. That's a chance I'm willing to take. You let them know their cage has no power over you. Now listen to me. The key to all of this is to stay calm, because they want you to get emotional. They are praying you'll start screaming so they can point the finger and say, "She's hysterical." Don't you dare give them that satisfaction. You state your truth calmly, and then you learn when to walk away. And let me be clear, disengaging, walking away, that isn't weakness. That's a power move. That's you telling them the game is over, and I'm not playing. This brings us to the support system. You cannot do this alone. You need to build relationships with people who validate your perceptions. A trusted friend, a family member, a therapist. You need people in your corner who you can call and say, "This just happened. Am I crazy?" And they will say, "No, you are not crazy. What they did was wrong." These people are your lifeline back to reality. With your anchor and your support system in place, you can begin boundary enforcement. This is where you put your foot down. You start saying no. You start stating consequences. If you speak to me that way again, I will leave the room. And then you have to do it. Your words mean nothing without action. This is how you rebuild your confidence, by keeping promises to yourself. Every time you enforce a boundary, you are teaching the narcissist how you expect to be treated, but more importantly, you are teaching yourself that you are worthy of respect. Remember, knowledge is power, and now you have the power to see through their verbal games. But you have to practice. This is your practice component. Rehearse your responses in the car, in the shower. Say them out loud until they feel natural. You are training for a verbal battle, and you need to be prepared. Finally, I want you to take on the education mission. Share this information with someone who needs to hear it. There are millions of people trapped in these verbal prisons who don't even know it. By sharing this knowledge, you help them build their own verbal self-defense system. But let me give you a final warning. These phrases are just the beginning. A true narcissist has a deep bag of tricks. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and never forget this: you deserve relationships where words are used to build you up, not to tear you down. You deserve honesty that comes with compassion and a love that makes you feel bigger, not smaller. You deserve the truth.